Are you sometimes confused by the many time management courses and books and principles and methods you can apply to your everyday life? Then go download our free course on time management. It's only 3 things you need to focus on that will give you the 95% of the effect of being good at time management. So go download it right now. It's completely free. In the previous video, we talked about self-discipline and what's the basis of it. Why do we need it at all? Why aren't we just born with the ability to do whatever it is we want to do, right? Because human beings are the only species that can look at some food and say, I really shouldn't eat that. It's not good for me, and then we eat it, right? We can say that as we're eating it. So we want something, and then we do the opposite at the same time, right? That's an incredible ability. But it's just how we're built. So we have to work with that instead of imagining that I'm a good person who has self-discipline. It's nothing to do with that. So what's the next level? And I really urge you to go back and watch that video if you haven't already done so, about the foundation, the basic understanding of why we need self-discipline. It's called the number 1 rule of self-discipline. So once we know that, what is the key to self-discipline? What is really the central message that I could give you of understanding what it is? Because we very often talk about how it looks, right? If I ask you what is self-discipline, or I ask anybody else, then they'll start talking to me about how it looks. It's when you don't want to do something and you make yourself do it. Okay, how do I make myself do it, right? And nobody can explain that. It doesn't happen, right? Because we don't know. That's why you can't take that skill and give it to somebody else. Just think about it. If you know how to, if you're a carpenter and you know how to make a chair, and I say, how do you make a chair? He will be able to explain to me how to make a chair, step by step, and show you. And then, after a bit of practice, you can make a chair. When it comes to self-discipline, we know how it looks, so I can say, it looks like that. It's like the carpenter says, well, the chair looks like that. And then I can just start practicing, and if I'm lucky enough, and if I work at it long enough, over time, years or months, I might be able to make a chair. It will be so much easier if he can tell me just the core of it, just how am I making this chair, right? So what is self-discipline really? What does it come down to? Instead of, well, it's right? So let's stop explaining how it looks and start looking at what is it really. And what it is this. This is an amazing insight. When this reached my brain after having struggled with self-discipline for so long, everything changed because now I knew what the game was and I could start playing the game instead of trying to acting like I had discipline. Because if you practice it long enough, if you act like you have it, then eventually you will have it. Bull! It doesn't happen that way, right? It just doesn't. If you act like you can produce the chair, then, fake it until you make it. That's relevant in some other cases, but here it really didn't work for me. So let's look into it. Self-discipline. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you decided to go for a run, right? And then the first thing we want to recognize is that the person the evening before who made that agreement with him or herself is not the same person as the one that wakes up. That's the first understanding. And that's really what self-discipline, because who's trying to discipline who, right? And then, I don't have any self-discipline. Do you mean the person who wakes up, who has, a body it's not started yet? You have your metabolism is completely different from when you're upbeat and you've been taking that shower or you've been for a run. You're a completely different person. You have a totally different outlook on life, right? Sometimes you can even feel fearful because the person who wakes up has no power. You just left sleep. And you got a fetus position, right, underneath the covers, and you just go, I can't. The things I'm going to do today, I can't do. Because you're looking at those things that you have to do today from that position of being, and you're naked also, perhaps, right, or in your pajamas. And once you get into the shower and you get some breakfast, you get dressed, right? You smell good again. Then suddenly there's a new person there who can deal with life, hopefully. Or if you actually go for that run, your whole metabolism changes, your whole body, the oxygen is just bursting through your veins and everything is just totally changed. And you feel powerful. And suddenly, and you take that shower, you get dressed, and suddenly you can just deal with it all, right? That's a different person. That's a totally different identity. And look at something that we say is constant, a person's values. You have totally different values when you're in bed as when you're dressed and you've gone for a run, right? Totally different person. What values do you have? What's most important in life when you're underneath your covers, when you wake up in the morning? Well, taking care of myself, protecting myself, getting that extra sleep, right? I need that because I'm weak, right? That's your values, But when you get up and they're totally different values. What's most important? Well, it's getting results or helping other people or, creating a great day for my family, whatever it is, right? But those are totally different values. Another example with regards to what if you're angry? That changes your values completely. If you're really angry, right? Suddenly other things are more important than what used to be important. Oh, that thing about the family values are most important, taking care of your family. Well, now it doesn't seem that important since you're screaming and shouting at your wife or your spouse, right? So it changes depending on who we are. Our emotional state, our physical state changes what person we're talking with. So when you, on day one, make an agreement or a deal with yourself and say, I'm going to get up tomorrow and go for a run. You're making that agreement or that deal, that appointment with another person that's you. Right? Is that true? That's why it's hard to follow through on, because the one who's supposed to follow through isn't the same as the one who decides what to do. So you're schizophrenic, basically. So am I. So is everybody. So what do? Well, you start looking at this and you start realizing that that's how it is. Instead of beating yourself up and say, I can never follow through on anything. Who are you talking about? The waking up or the right? What person are you talking about? Because this person can totally follow through every single time. All of the way up to 2:00 in the afternoon. Then you start getting into becoming another person who's tired and worn out and everything. But, it just depends on who you're asking. You can totally follow through depending on who I'm talking about. But, so you know that you're going to be a different person in the morning. And that's the first insight here, or the second insight. And that means that if you're a totally different person, then what could you do to make that person get up, right? Because it's a different person. What if it was a totally different person? It's your sister or your brother, and you had to make that lazy, get out of bed. No swearing here, no profanities. If you had to make him get out of bed, what would you do? What would you do? Would you tell your wife, spouse, and say, tomorrow, when I'm waking up, you have to kick me out of bed. Could I make you do that? Just right out of bed. Or maybe you could set your alarm and then place it in the other room and make it be really loud. Or set a timer on your TV. So that is, down in the living room. You wake up and it's all the way down there, right? And you have to stop it because it's going to wake up your kids, whatever. What could you do to make sure that could you make another person call you? Could you have your friend call you and say, get out of bed, right? Could you say to your friend, well, if I'm not getting out of bed tomorrow, I owe you $100, right? And then, no way I'm going to pay him $100, right? Could you commit to saying, I'm going to get out of bed at 6:00 in the morning or 5 for that matter and work out for a month. If I skip just a day, then I will owe you $100 for each day I skip, And that seems silly, Claus. It's not silly because you're schizophrenic, right? You have to deal with that lazy person who wakes up in the morning, who doesn't want to do any of these things, even though he knows that she knows some part of the brain that it's good for him, right? So that's an important understanding to deal with reality instead of saying, I should be better than that. You're not. Neither am I. That's just how we're built. Right? So if we can work with self-discipline in that way, we can certainly act as if we had it. We'll never have it, but if we know what it is like this, right? then suddenly we can make it happen. We can have actions that mirror that person with self-discipline, even though we don't have it, and nobody has it. We just found a way in order for us to be able to do things consistently that are good for us, but that doesn't feel good in the moment. See you in the next video.